August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. On August 9th, the Americans dropped another atomic bomb, this time on Nagasaki. The immediate combined death toll of the two raids was about 200,000 people. Over the decades that followed, many more thousands would suffer and perish from radiation-induced illnesses. Winnipeg is one of over 8,000 cities that belong to Mayors for Peace, an organization devoted to nuclear disarmament. Annually, in early August, Winnipeggers gather to affirm their commitment to peace and freedom from nuclear terror with a Lanterns for Peace ceremony. This is the Winnipeg Lanterns for Peace ceremony of August 6th, 2024.
Good evening, everyone. Today, August 6th, is the 79th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, and Nagasaki is on August 9th. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral lands, Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Acknowledging this truth is important, yet only a small part in cultivating strong relationships with Indigenous communities. My name is Junko Bailey, and I am originally from Nagasaki. I was born in Nagasaki, and my family are in Nagasaki. And when I was growing up in the Japanese school, every summer there's always an educational program about 1945, what happened in Japan. And all this terrible thing that happened during the war, especially emphasized on the atomic bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So every summer, we're here with a small group of friends and family commemorate this Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. And the interesting part of this ceremony is that it's all for families and all involved with the people from different parts of the world living in Winnipeg with different background, different educational background, and different ideas, different values, and different religious beliefs. But still, we're here on this peaceful land in Canada and remembering what happened in now 79 years ago in Japan. So putting our differences aside, I think it's important to open up and have a conversation about our history, your personal experiences, to understand where we come from. And our main goal and common goal is for the peace and the family and children to live peacefully without being threatened by the war and nuclear weapons. So I'd like to start with the speaker. The greetings from David Pankratz on behalf of Premier Web Canoe.
Thank you. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Bit of a height difference here. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today. Thank you. That's okay. I think I can make it work. So it's my pleasure to be here today, on behalf of Wab Canoe, Premier Manitoba, and all of my colleagues at the Manitoba Legislature. I'm so happy that we can hold an event like this out by the fountain in this beautiful location, Manitoba. We're joining the whole world right now in commemorating the 79th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I'd like to thank the Japanese Cultural Association of Manitoba, the National Association of Japanese Canadians, the Peace Alliance Winnipeg, and Winnipeg Monthly Meeting of the Religious Society of Friends for organizing this ceremony tonight. And I've been just overwhelmed taking a moment to walk through and see people being open and vulnerable enough, and we were chatting about this just a minute ago, to actually create some art together and share ideas, even if we come from different places and different parts of the world. So, tonight when we remember such a globally historic event that had such devastating, far-reaching consequences, when atomic bombs were dropped on these two cities, it's hard to imagine this, to be completely honest with you, but thousands of people were killed immediately. And that lingering radiation that resulted in more death, and for the thousands more who survived the initial assault and the pain that went through it, 80 years later almost, 79 years now today, we really have a deeper understanding about the impacts of these bombs and the technology and their compounding and lasting effects. And it's so important for us to state sort of unequivocally at this point, with everything going on in the world, that we cannot as a global community allow this to happen again. And that seems obvious, but these sort of gatherings, getting together to say this publicly together and to share this sentiment and share our understanding of what's happened in the world, is so important. We bear the responsibility of embodying those values of peace, of cooperation, and humanity, truly, to ensure a brighter future for ourselves and for our generations to come. I've got 3 kids at home, right? We were chatting about that before. And what is it that we're doing in that building? And we talk about this a lot in caucus. What are we doing in that building to make sure that 20 or 30 years from now, when my kids are my age, they can look back and actually be proud of the things that I accomplished, rather than looking back and realizing, hey, my dad was part of something really terrifying, right? I would very much rather have a situation where they can look to me and say, hey, Dad, thanks for doing that thing that you did, 30 years ago. And so it's something that we really keep in mind when we do this work. So tonight, as we take the time to light these lanterns that were created by everyone, we also want to commemorate victims of past and present wars and the generations of families that were affected by the atrocious events in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I hope that each of us can really take some of the sentiments and the maybe education that we'll get tonight away from here and really dedicate ourselves toward working for lasting peace, both here at home and abroad. So thank you so much on behalf of the province of Manitoba for having me here today, and I really look forward to hearing our other speakers this evening and sharing some really nice moments by the fountain with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And next, I'm not sure if we have Ben Ibandi. Don't know if we have him. So I'd like to introduce the first keynote speaker, Tina Mai Chen. She's a vice provost equity from U of University of Manitoba.
Thank you, Junko, and thank you everyone for coming this evening, and particularly to Junko and Art Mickey for inviting me to come and speak. So I think I'm going to premise what I have to say today by just letting everyone know that I'm a historian by training. I have fellow historians here with me. I can see some in the crowd, and I'm a historian of East Asia. So for many years at the University of Manitoba, I taught a course on the histories of Japan and China from the 19th century to the present. One of the themes of this course is the relationship between nation states, nationalisms, and who defines and acts on behalf of the people. The course focuses on moments when the humanity of particular people is denied because of the actions of nation states and the ideologies of nationalism. And this is often done, as I'm sure many of you are aware, through language of talking about people as enemies, as outsiders, as people who need to be civilized, or through dehumanization of those who we consider to be not like us. The course also addresses the historical legacies of wartime violence in East Asia, including the logics through which acts of mass destruction targeting civilian populations are rationalized within nation states and also rationalized internationally. The course focuses as well on 20th and 21st century modernizing ideals, our fascination with scientific advancements, and the use of technologies to control nature, including the concomitant disregard for ecological impact of weapons of mass destruction. And so it's in this context that I think, teach, learn, and reflect upon the dropping of not just one, but of 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. And I think it's worth us pausing here because we know the destructive impacts of the first bomb on August 6th. Yet the decision was still made 3 days later that a second one needed to be dropped as well. As many of you know, as a result of the dropping of the atomic bombs, the end of the Asia-Pacific War ensued. And it's in relation to these themes that I want to reflect on commemoration by different people around the world of the anniversary of the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs. On a human level, as I know we'll talk about through this evening, this is a horrific and horrifying event. One in which a war was ended by a weapon whose impact could not be known, and where the fascination for what it could do was greater than any values of humanity. In terms of how we understand this moment, it is a complicated history, with interpretations of the Asia-Pacific War being ideologically loaded, and no less complicated are the politics of commemoration of moments associated with the Asia-Pacific War. Today, and in the spirit of this evening, I want to speak to the strands of the history that are about hope and humanity, and that seek separation from nation-state and nationalist agendas that strategically have deployed narratives of victimhood. It seems that this message is so desperately needed today, in this moment when the world is once again embroiled in multiple wars, with us versus them framings used to deny humanity to entire populations and to justify use of weapons of mass destruction directed at civilian populations, or to just justify turning away from the suffering of people who are not our co-nationals. To quote a Japanese scholar, Hirosato, who I think puts it really well in regards to commemoration of August 6th, Hirosato wrote, quote, "When people commemorate the past according to the logic of nationalism, they focus on their co-nationals, whether heroes or victims, without sufficient regard for foreign others," unquote. So where is the hope? The dropping of the atomic bombs on Japan transformed Japan as a nation into the torchbearer of anti-nuclear pacifism, particularly after the 1954 Bikini incident, when a crew of Japanese fishing vessels was exposed to the fallout of a US hydrogen bomb test. So one needs to remember that the test continued near the Marshall Islands, with one crew member dying of radiation. It's from here that the number of testimonials by Hibakusha survivors increased. These testimonials has helped us all understand the impact of the atomic bombs, physically, emotionally, and ecologically. The most powerful peace movements have been those led by people. Some of you are the Winnipeg locals. I recognize you here. But they're led by people whose activism is rooted in common humanity. Those who see Japanese Hibakusha, Korean Hibakusha, and survivors of nuclear and chemical warfare as individuals unjustly targeted in geopolitical struggles. They seek to hear and listen to the suffering, resilience, and humanity of people who were victims of various forms of state-sanctioned violence in the Asia-Pacific War, and to build solidarities. These movements are led by individuals in various nation-states who understand the power of expansive humanity as the basis of peace and commemoration. They know that it is not enough to speak the language of human rights and then to selectively apply these in ways that prioritize geopolitical power over humanity. Following the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, We can all take inspiration from the citizen movements that emerged in Japan in the 1950s to the 1980s as a form of organizing that refused to accept nation states, nationalist, and economic developmentalist framings of who they should be. They sought to counter environmental degradation and to draw attention to the scars on the land and on the people. They acted locally, but with attention to the geopolitical order. They also built solidarity centered on recognizing shared humanity and from spaces of discomfort about being at once victims and victimizers. This is particularly important if we are to center hope in calls for peace and disarmament, not as naive wishes, but as radical solutions. We need peace and nuclear disarmament as radical solutions in a current context where political leaders are, at this moment, defending the use of atomic bombs and weapons of mass destruction, where threats by nation states to use nuclear arms are all too common, and where the lives of some people are not valued equally to those of others, and where humanitarian crises worsen daily. So as we reflect on the dropping of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, and the history that has unfolded since this time, let us think not only about those impacted by nuclear bombs, but those impacted by bombs of all types and by wartime violence. And let us keep their humanity in our hearts and in our pledges for peace and an end to nuclear and chemical warfare. That is, let us take up the mantle of Hiroshima and Nagasaki peace activists and name hope and humanity beyond nationalist agendas and as a goal and solution for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Next keynote, we have Christine Claire Bolisay. She is from the Steinbach Regional Secondary School.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Bulisai. I'm a student at the Steinbach Regional Secondary School. And firstly, I'd like to thank Peace Alliance Winnipeg and my teacher, Ivan Pankrantz, for inviting me here tonight. And I would also just like to thank my good friend, Althea Revelo, who co-wrote the speech with me but could not be here tonight. Tonight, I would like to bring you the question, how serious are we about avoiding nuclear conflict? In a world teetering on the edge of chaos, the threat of nuclear conflict looms larger than ever. We must ask ourselves a fundamental question. Are we committed to avoiding nuclear war? Or are we merely paying lip service while the global situation deteriorates? As we witness escalating conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, it is crucial to assess our responses and policies. Are we genuinely pursuing peace, or are we inadvertently fueling the very fires we hope to extinguish? Today, I urge you to reflect on our role in these crises and consider whether our actions align with our commitment to a safer, more stable world. The smell of smoke hangs heavy in the air, the relentless sound of gunfire echoing through the streets of Ukraine as remains embroiled in conflict that have claimed innocent lives. Civil war broke out in 2014. The country has been in a state of civil war, with war crimes committed by the Ukrainian forces reported by the OCSE. These crimes included unlawful detentions, torture, and summary executions, painting a grim picture of the human cost of this prolonged conflict. The situation escalated drastically when Russia invaded in February of 2022, leading to a devastating toll. Over 10,000 civilians have been killed and 19,000 injured, according to the UN. This reality forces us to question whether our efforts are truly aimed at fostering peace or if we are inadvertently exacerbating the violence. The human toll extends far beyond the immediate casualties. 3.7 million Ukrainians are internally displaced, turned from their homes and communities. Another 6.5 million have fled the country entirely, seeking refuge from the chaos that has engulfed their homeland. In total, a staggering 14.6 million people, and nearly a third of Ukraine's pre-war population, are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. As the conflict grinds on, with 18% of Ukraine still under Russian occupation, Russia's actions have further complicated the situation, holding referendums in 4 regions, asking residents if they wanted to join the Russian Federation, signaling their intention to retain control over these areas. Additionally, Russia conducted training drills using tactical nuclear weapons, which are designed for use on the battlefield with lower explosive fields compared to strategic nuclear weapons. These drills served as a clear message and threat, highlighting the severe risk and potential for escalation in the conflict. The specter of nuclear warfare casts a long shadow over these developments, reminding us of the dire consequences of missteps in our foreign policy and international relations. The war in Ukraine is not a distant abstraction. It is a raw, bleeding wound on the conscience of our world, demanding our attention and action. Every day that passes without resolution is another day of lives shattered, dreams deferred. The same urgency is echoed in the long-standing conflict in the Middle East. In 1948, the State of Israel was founded on Palestinian inhabited land. This event would lead to the mass displacement of Palestinians, most of whom would become refugees in the Gaza Strip. With the conflict unresolved, it has since been under attack by the Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, for the past 70 years, but now more than ever, the threats of nuclear disaster are escalating rapidly. On October 7th of 2023, Hamas, a militant Palestinian group, launched air, land, and sea attacks on the State of Israel, killing 1,200 Israeli citizens and taking over 200 hostages. In the following days, Israel would declare themselves in a state of war. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, ordered a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, and immediately IDF fighter jets would order airstrikes. Electricity, water, food, and fuel had been cut off from the Palestinians, and as of July of 2024, 1.9 million, or 90% of Gaza's citizens, have been internally displaced, some multiple times. 40,000 are confirmed dead, and the International Court of Justice has just declared Israel guilty of apartheid. Global pressure for a ceasefire has intensified, with widespread demands for action coming across the regional community. Regionally, the crisis is escalating beyond Gaza. The Houthi movement in Yemen has been targeting and seizing any ship inbound for Israel until Gaza is given the food and medicine it needs. In response, on July 20th, the IDF airstruck a crucial port to Yemen's weaponry and humanitarian aid. Likewise, Lebanon's militant group Hezbollah has been under fire from the IDF, evacuating tens of thousands of civilians from northern Lebanon to escape Israeli airstrikes. Lastly, Iran, who do not recognize Israel's existence, and Israel, who view Iran as an existential threat, have been engaged in a series of confrontations, including a dangerously close strike near Isfahan, Iran, where its military nuclear programs are located. In this volatile context, Israel has accused Iran of developing nuclear weapons, a claim which Iran firmly denies. This accusation further complicates its already intense and multifaceted conflicts in the region. It is important to keep in mind it is pretty much a given that Israel has nuclear weapons. Even though there has never been formal confirmation, Israel's Minister for Heritage has not denied the possibility of using nuclear attacks to escalate the war. Sure, this choice would permanently end the conflict, but it would have catastrophic death tolls for all parties involved and would forever have lasting effects on generations to come. It would leave the land inhabitable for generations and displace millions. And so, if the United States were to follow through with Joe Biden's promise to, quote, do all we can to protect Israel's security, this could mean the beginning of the first global nuclear war is much closer than any of us could have ever imagined. So the question is, shouldn't Canada be using their influence to bring lasting peace to this region? Well, to achieve this, we must critically examine and question the increasingly assertive actions taken by our government. Historically, Canada was among the Western nations that possessed nuclear weapons during the Cold War. Even though these were handed over in 1984, Canada has not entirely disarmed. Our ongoing NATO membership precludes us from endorsing the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or the TPNW, and we remain engaged in NATO's nuclear development and proliferation efforts. This alignment is largely due to our military alliance with the United States, and by extension, NATO. However, a 2021 poll indicated that 74% of Canadians support joining the TPNW and moving away from nuclear weapons. Given its active involvement in the nuclear arms fight, Canada is likely to become a carrier for American nuclear weapons in the near future, in the development of the F-35 fighter jet and the B-6112 nuclear bomb, the latter of which, the F-35, is specifically designed to deploy. If Canada proceeds with acquiring the F-35, it will be directly involved in the deployment of these nuclear weapons for the United States. As we stand at this critical juncture, it is imperative to evaluate our actions and their alignment with our professed commitment to a safer, more stable world. Are we genuinely striving for peace, or are we inadvertently perpetuating a cycle of violence and instability? The answer to this question will determine the future of global security and the legacy we leave for generations to come. It is time to move beyond rhetoric and take meaningful steps towards de-escalation, diplomacy, and genuine resolution. The fact that we are alive right now is already hope, but the stakes have never been higher, and the world is watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And our next speaker is Martha Bono Weeb. She is from the Mennonite Central Committee, Manitoba.
Good evening. Grateful to be here with you all this evening. I had not known about this event, and it's lovely to see the artwork that's made and to gather with you this evening. So I don't have a projector to show you this, but you may be familiar with Mennonite Central Committee's little red pins. They say to remember is to work for peace. And today, as I was thinking about this evening, that phrase in this pin seemed appropriate for this evening. So there are a few reflections based on this phrase. To remember is to work for peace. Remembering. Today we remember. We recall to our hearts and minds the members, the people of our shared humanity who have been devastated by weapons of war. We bring back into our hearts, the membership of our hearts and minds, those whose lives were taken, those whose homes and livelihoods were destroyed, those whose lives were forever altered by bombs, by weapons of war, by militarism. We remember in this way so as not to forget, to not lose sight of the magnitude of destruction wrought in the past. We remember so as to see parallels with devastation wrought today by weapons of war and militarism. We remember as a form of resistance. We remember so as not to be taken in by the power and influence of systems of death. We remember so that we can teach life. To remember is to work for peace. To work for peace. Let us not be paralyzed by the memory of the horror. Let it motivate us to act. There is much work to do. So let us draw and create. Let us hold signs and protest. Call our elected officials and meet our neighbors. Let us speak and sing and dance and use all of our creative capacities. This is the work of nonviolence. To remember is to work for peace. Peace. Peace is what we work for, and peace is how we get there. Peace is nuclear disarmament. Peace is a world without violence. And peace is so much more. You will also have all of your own imaginations of what peace looks like. Peace is a home for all, and clean water and good food. Peace must include justice, liberation, care for fellow humans, care for the earth. Peace is sharing your favorite snack with a friend in the shade of a big oak tree. Peace is sharing your favorite snack with that neighbor across the street with whom you do not see eye to eye at all. Peace is reparations. and equitable systems and dignity for every person. Nuclear disarmament, it's a necessity for peace. And let's be more ambitious. Let's work for the well-being of all lands, all creatures, all ecosystems, and people, every person, every place. To remember is to work for peace. May it be so.
Thank you, Martha. Next, I'd like to introduce the Mayor of Hiroshima Peace Declaration, read by Terumi Kawada.
Thank you all for coming tonight. This is an event that means a lot to me. I've been a part of this event for many years, and it never ceases to amaze me how much passion and hope and love that we all bring together in this one event. And I welcome all of you to think about what has already been said, and all words that mean so much but require action on our parts. I am going to read the speech from the mayor of Hiroshima, which was made probably about 11 hours ago in Hiroshima. And he speaks from the heart, and he speaks with a lot of knowledge and experience in Japan about what happens when nuclear arms and weapons are used to destroy the lives of so many innocent people. So I would like to read his speech, which is pretty lengthy, but I hope you can bear with me in getting this getting his words spoken. Citizens of the world, what do you think? Are more powerful nuclear forces necessary for national security? What about arms races, competing to maintain superiority over other nations? Russia's protracted invasion of Ukraine and the worsening situation between Israel and Palestine are claiming the lives of countless innocent people, shattering normal life. It seems to me that these global tragedies are deepening distrust and fear among nations, reinforcing the public assumptions that to solve international problems, we have to rely on military force, which we should be rejecting. Given such circumstances, how can nations offer safety and security to their people? Is that not impossible? Through the pillars under the Peace Memorial Museum, we can see the cenotaph for the A-bomb victims. Anyone praying at the cenotaph can look straight through it to the atomic bomb dome. Peace Memorial Park, with these structures on its north-south axis, was built in accordance with the Hiroshima Peace Memorial City Construction Law, enacted 75 years ago today. Built by the people of Hiroshima and many other seekers of peace, it has become a place to memorialize the victims and to think, talk, and make promises to each other about peace. If after the war, Japan had abandoned our peace constitution and focused on rebuilding our military, the city of peace, Hiroshima, would not exist. Standing here, we can all feel our predecessors' determination to eliminate the scourge of war, trusting in the justice and faith of peace-loving people around the world. Expressing that determination, one hibakusha continually communicated the spirit of Hiroshima. Now is the time to turn the tide of history, to get beyond the hatreds of the past, uniting beyond differences of race and nationality, to turn distrust into trust, hatred into reconciliation, and the conflict into harmony. This uplifting sentiment was written by a man who, as a 14-year-old boy, saw scenes from living hell. A baby with skin peeled down to red flesh next to its mother, burnt from head to toe, and a corpse with its guts strewn on the dirt. In 1989, a massive people's movement for democracy brought down the Berlin Wall, the predominant symbol of the Cold War. President Gorbachev expressed humanity's collective need for peace and his determination to stop the arms race and nuclear terror, eradicate nuclear weapons, and relentlessly pursue political solutions to regional conflicts. He and President Reagan worked together through dialogue to bring the Cold War to an end, which led to the United States and the Soviet Union concluding the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. They demonstrated that policymakers can overcome even critical situations through resolute commitment to dialogue. Let us not be resigned to pessimism about the chaotic world situation. Instead, let us be as determined as our forebears and united as one, with hope in our hearts, take collective action. Our unity will move leaders now relying on nuclear deterrence to shift their policies. We could make that happen. To extinguish the suspicion and doubt that create conflicts, civil society must foster a circle of trust through exchange and dialogue with consideration for others. We must spread beyond national borders the sense of safety we feel in our daily lives. The crucial step here is to share and emphasize with the experiences and values of others through music, art, sports, and other interactions. Through such exchange, let us create a world in which we all share the culture of peace. In particular, I call on our youth who will lead future generations to visit Hiroshima and taking to heart what they experience here, create a circle of hope. The city of Hiroshima, working with Mayors for Peace, which now has more than 8,400 members, cities in 166 countries and regions, will actively support community endeavors to raise peace consciousness. And as an aside, I will say that I was here many years ago when our former mayor, Glenn Murray, signed the Mayors for Peace for Winnipeg. Twice in a row, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, Review Conference has failed to adopt a final document. These failures have revealed a harsh reality, namely the enormous differences among countries with respect to nuclear weapons. I hope the Japanese government, which has declared repeatedly that the NPT is the cornerstone of the international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime. We will exercise strong leadership, calling on all countries to transcend their positions and engage in constructive dialogue toward a relationship of trust. Furthermore, I request that Japan, as a practical effort toward a nuclear weapon-free world, participate as an observer at the third meeting of states parties to the treaty on the proliferation of nuclear weapons to be held in March of next year. Subsequently, and as soon as possible, Japan must become a party to the treaty. In addition, I demand that the Japanese government strengthen measures of support for the hibakusha, including those living outside of Japan. Now that their average age has exceeded 85, the government must accept that they are not that they are still suffering the many emotional and physical effects of radiation. Today, at this Peace Memorial ceremony, marking 79 years since the bombing, we offer our deepest condolences to the souls of the atomic bomb victims, together with Nagasaki and like-minded people around the world, remembering once again the Hibakusha struggle. We pledge to make every effort to abolish nuclear weapons and light the way toward lasting world peace. Citizens of the world, let us all, with hope in our heart, walk with Hiroshima towards tomorrow's peace. Matsui Kazumi, Mayor, City of Hiroshima. Thank you.
Thank you, Terumi. Next, I'd like to introduce you. We will skip the reading from the Stars Looking On, and we move on to The Story of Sadako, read by Momoka St. Louis.
The real story of Sadako Sasaki in Hiroshima. Origami, the art of folding paper to make decorative items, is a common indoor entertainment in Japan, and most people learn how to fold an origami crane in their youth. As the crane is a symbol for long life, strings of 1,000 paper cranes, or senbazuru in Japanese, are often offered as a get-well gift expressing hope for a person's recovery, as a sign of support for natural disaster victims, or encouragement for sports teams. These days, paper cranes are starting to become known around the world as a tangible form of prayer for peace or a way to show support for people facing difficult challenges. Sadako was just 2 years old and 2 kilometers away from the atomic bomb when it was dropped on her hometown, Hiroshima, in 1945. Most of Sadako's neighbors died, but Sadako wasn't injured at all, at least not in any way people could see. Up until the time Sadako was in 7th grade, 12 years old in 1955, she was a normal, happy girl and a keen runner. However, one day during a school race that she helped her team win, she felt extremely tired and dizzy. This got worse and worse until one day Sadako became so dizzy that she fell down and was unable to get up. Her schoolmates informed the teacher, and Sadako's parents took her to the Red Cross hospital to see what was wrong with her. Sadako found out she had leukemia. At that time, they called leukemia the A-bomb disease. There was a low survival rate for A-bomb disease, and Sadako was very scared. During Sadako's stay in the hospital, her best friend, Chizuko, came to visit her. Chizuko brought some origami, folding paper, and told Sadako of a legend. She explained that the crane, a sacred bird in Japan, lives for 100 years, and if a sick person folds 1,000 paper cranes, then that person would soon get well. After hearing the legend, Sadako decided to fold 1,000 cranes and pray that she would get well again. Sadako kept folding paper cranes even though she was in great pain. Even during these times of great pain, she was known by hospital staff and other patients as cheerful and helpful, and always asking for scraps of paper or material to continue folding cranes. Although Sadako knew she wouldn't survive, she folded from 1,300 to 1,500 cranes and continued to be strong for the sake of her family. In October 1955, after an 8-month battle with the illness, her family standing by her bed, she died. Sadako's classmates had lost many of their friends to the A-bomb disease and were saddened by the loss of Sadako. They decided to form a unity club to honor her and stay in touch after they all left school. From 3,100 schools and from 9 foreign countries gave money to get a statue built to recognize the many children who lost their lives because of the bomb. On May 5, 1958, almost 3 years after Sadako had died, enough money was collected to build a monument in her honor. A figure of a girl with arms outstretched, holding up a golden paper crane, is said to be modeled on her. It is known as the Children's Peace Monument and is located in the center of Hiroshima Peace Park, close to the spot where the atomic bomb was dropped. Some 10 million cranes from around the world are offered at the monument every year. The act of folding a crane started by Sadako and her classmates turned into a national, then international children's peace movement. Children from all over the world still send folded paper cranes to be placed beneath Sadako's statue. In so doing, they fulfill the wish engraved on the base of the statue. The wish is, "This is our cry, this is our prayer, peace to the world."
Thank you, Momoka. So I'd like to conclude the program, the ceremony part, and we will launch the lantern onto the pond with the candlelight. So I'd like to ask you, after listening to all the wonderful speeches, what can we do next? What would happen after this ceremony? So what I like to know is what each of us can make a difference. And sometimes we feel hopeless, but there are some small effort that we all can do and make. And I think this is one opportunity for us to get together and participate in an event like this. And when we take pictures, these days we have social media, we post our photos on Facebook and Instagram, and we talk about what we learned today. And then somebody might like it, somebody might be inspired by your story, and then somebody might share your story to somebody else. Then I think that's how we can make a small difference, by spreading what we learned today, or talking to your neighbors what you've attended an event last night. So I hope you can do that, your part, to spread the word and nuclear abolition. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.